When it comes to building the projects that you work on every day, what does your company deliver better than anyone else? The reason I'm asking you that question is because if you can get clarity on that, you're on the road to beginning to understand what your brand is. Your brand is your unique claim of distinction. And it's important for your company to be able to clarify your brand so that you can attract the right kinds of clients to your business and the right kinds of employees. In order for your brand to be meaningful and effective, though, it has to be believable and it has to be relevant to both your customers and your employees. And today on Construction Genius, we dive in to everything branding. My guest is Tim Leon. He is the president of Gil Leon Marketing Communications, which is a full-service brand-driven marketing communications firm in St. Louis, Missouri. And he serves as the brand strategist and works with clients on branding, rebranding, and brand refreshes across multiple industries, including construction. So we're going to have a no-jargon discussion here today about branding, and specifically how you can clarify that brand of yours and communicate it so that you get the right kinds of clients and the right kinds of employees in your organization. Enjoy my conversation with Tim. Share it with other people. Thank you for listening to Construction Genius. This is Eric Anderton, and you're listening to Construction Genius, a leadership masterclass. Thomas Edison said that genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. If you're a construction leader, you know all about the perspiration, and this show is all about the 1% inspiration that you can add to your hard work to help you to improve your leadership. Tim, welcome to Construction Genius.
Thanks, Eric. It's great to be with you.
I love bringing on people who are specialists in particular areas that I know my clients and my listeners want to learn more about. And you're a specialist when it comes to branding. What do you mean by branding?
Yeah, that's a great question because there's a lot of interpretations. When we, as a marketing firm, talk about branding, I define it as an organization's unique claim of distinction. What makes you compelling to your customers? And that can be in the words you use, the visual expression of what your brand looks like or your logo looks like, but it's everything that makes you unique to the customer.
Okay. So why is that important? Because you're talking in terms of words, visuals, and logo. And most of the people here, they're thinking about moving dirt and laying foundations and building structures, and words, visuals, and logos don't necessarily go into that.
Absolutely. When I think of a brand for a company, a construction company, your brand is an asset, no different than the trucks that your workers drive, the office building. It is an asset, and that asset brings value to the company. Interestingly enough, we do a lot of work with companies that may be looking to sell their business, and there's a ton of research out there that states that a strong brand can actually add value to the purchase price of a company. And I find it interesting. This is not your category, but I saw recently that when Amazon bought Whole Foods, 70% of the purchase price and value was in the goodwill of the Whole Foods brand. So it's very important to the value of the company. And I think the other thing is, in your industry, like many others, with the shortage of workers, skilled workers, from a recruitment standpoint, it's changed. The landscape has changed. Prospective employees don't just want a job. They want a job with the right company. They want a job with a brand that has a culture that stands for something. So I think branding can be very important from a recruitment perspective as well.
So that's interesting, right? Because when it comes to messaging, words, visuals, logo, you've got a client-facing brand, you might say, and the purpose of that is for them to know you, trust you, like you, want to do business with you. And then you have what you're describing as an employee-facing brand. Is it the same brand, or how do you distinguish between those two things when, let's say, you buy into this idea of branding and you're looking to establish that brand? How do you distinguish between those two aspects of it?
Great question. It's what you said, externalized branding and internalized. Are they related? Absolutely. Is it the same brand? Yes, it is. The thing I would tell you is in a service industry specifically, people that work for you are really the expression of your brand, right? I mean, they're the ones out there customer facing. They're the ones representing what your brand promises to deliver. So my belief is you have to have employees that believe in your brand positioning and believe in the value and understand the importance of their role in delivering the brand promise. If you promise that I'm going to deliver a construction project on time every time, the people that you hire are the people that are going to make that happen. So I believe there's a direct correlation.
It's interesting because you use the phrase brand promise, brand positioning, and I know the guys and gals in the field are probably not thinking in terms of that. So how do I effectively communicate to my employees my brand positioning and brand promise in ways that they can understand?
I would say companies are very good at having external communications, marketing programs, but they don't think about an ongoing internal communications program. That could be as simple as a monthly or bi-monthly employee newsletter. I've done work for clients in construction category. What's the job site signage look like? Are we reminding people about the brand and what we deliver on a project? So I think job site signage, whether it's we've done things where we've had the president of a construction company go out to the sites and do a brown bag lunch, talk to the employees about how important they are to the brand and to the company. But I think it's ongoing communication. Your point's well taken. It's not a one and done. It's, do you have just like you do with your external marketing, internally, are you communicating on an ongoing basis about what your brand stands for and what you expect your employees to help deliver day in and day out to live up to those brand standards?
How then can I, if a brand is an organization's unique claim of distinction, how can I begin to clarify what is my unique claim of distinction as a construction company? How can I begin to shape and understand this branding message?
I think it starts with having what I would call a branding session with your key leadership, let's say. And what I would suggest, we do this for clients, but you don't have to hire an agency to do this, but you get in a room and you talk about what makes you unique. Now, and here's what I would say, Eric. A lot of people say, well, we kind of all do the same thing. Maybe that's true, but you do some things better than your competition. And you really need to distill down what I call a brand positioning, or maybe it's a brand theme or a brand promise that says, at ABC Construction, what we deliver better than anyone else is blank. And you come up with that declaration or that statement that maybe you deliver projects on time and beyond client expectation every time. Now, that's a big promise, right? Then you have to ask yourself, okay, we deliver that. How do we do that? How can we support that? So any strong brand positioning has to have some support points. We do that because we have a proven process on how we manage projects. We do that because you come up with these reasons on how you can deliver that position better than anyone else. And that really becomes the essence of everything you do. Like how, you look at everything you do. How does this marketing campaign I'm getting ready to do support my brand positioning? Or for, you're putting an RFP together for a big project you're going after. What do you say in that first paragraph when they're saying, tell me about your company? It should be really focused in on your positioning, on what you do better than anyone else. And I think it's putting brand first, really thinking about every time you get in front of a client or a prospect, what are the first things you're going to say about your company? They really needs to come down to why us? What makes us better? What do we do better? And how do we support that?
Okay, so let me take you into that meeting where, let's say I've got my leadership team and I've identified a couple of questions here to help clarify my brand. The first one is, what do we deliver better than anyone else? The second one is, how do we do that? What are some other specific questions that I might ask in that leadership meeting to help to clarify my brand?
I think one of the things you would ask, Eric, is why do I come to work every day? Like, what drives me to work for this company I work for? Now, that's getting real visceral, and maybe it's getting a little into the culture, but a lot of times that's the distinctive nature of a brand. Sometimes it's the culture, right? So you want to ask thought-provoking questions like that. I think the other question you have to ask yourself is, in my competitive set, you pick 2 or 3 competitors, you have to get into where are the weak links in their positioning that I can take advantage of. Sometimes that's how we get to a really strong brand position is we do things better than 2 or 3 of our competitors, and we really hone in on that. So I think you got to get into a competitive analysis a little bit. That's a couple of ways to get there.
Yeah, that's interesting, that competitive analysis. Perhaps you have a way of bidding work that's a little more creative than your competition, and that gives the customer some advantages. Perhaps you adopt technology in a way that's more cutting edge than your competition, and that helps you to build more productively. Those are all areas to be thinking about in terms of the get work, build work, and even how you handle your customers in terms of payments and things like that. Those are all things to consider when you're articulating out your brand position.
You're right. It should impact every part of your operations. And one other point I would make is once you, as a leadership team, have developed this positioning or positioning statement, I would validate it. And what I mean by that is I'd get a couple, 2, 3, 4 customers in a room together, or maybe on the phone, and say, hey, here's what we think makes us unique and why you, as a customer, work with us. Is that believable? Do you believe we do that better than anybody else? And make sure from the customer's perspective that they're buying into this. Because I always say a good brand positioning is believable, meaningful, and relevant to the customer. It really resonates to what the customer cares about.
Okay, so this is really, I want to talk about that more. So believable, meaningful, and relevant to the customer. What are your thoughts on, let's say I did schedule some interviews with my customers and I had 5 or 6 questions I wanted to ask them. What if I didn't ask them or tell them in advance, this is what we've come up with, but just merely ask them what their view is and see how that might differ from what I've come up with?
Very good idea, because I think you want to understand what the current brand perception is. And that's why I think you have to validate. You might be onto something that internally everybody thinks is great, but the customer's like, that's not what I think about when I think about you guys. I think about this. So it can really impact, because again, believability. You don't want to fight if it's a positive perception. How can you leverage that? So I think it's a great idea. You're right. You don't have to kind of lead the witness, right? More you can get them to just talk honestly is great.
You know, it's interesting when I'm on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a place where a lot of people hang out for business. And, you know, it's a tremendously dull, boring website. But nevertheless, we make connections there and we do business over LinkedIn. How do you advise companies to position themselves brand-wise in terms of how they present themselves to the world? How genuine should someone be in their brand positioning?
I think the more authentic and genuine, the better. Meaning, a lot of people, I think, when they're on LinkedIn, they want this polished appearance, right? They want it to be the right words. My belief is if your brand is more gritty, or you're more plain spoken, you really need to let that style of your brand reflect into how you do your LinkedIn. If you look at my LinkedIn, you know, when I describe what I do, I talk about, I help companies make it mean something. I help them find their unique claim of distinction and kind of bring it to the world. That's what I do. Now, that's not this flowery, over the top statement. I think the more simple and more clarity you can bring to your LinkedIn, the better when you describe the company. And especially on your personal, I always tell people your personal LinkedIn, when you talk about who you work for, that should be consistent with how the company's talking about, right? The brand position should be very similar.
So what's the biggest mistake that construction company owners make when they're going about this branding process?
Well, I think I sort of touched on it. I think the mistake they make sometimes is not validating it with the customer, like going forward organically. Like, we think this is great and it happened in this conference room and we've got this theme line and we got this position, but we kind of forget about who really needs to resonate with. So I think and what I want to advocate for these business owners, because I am a business owner, we don't have time or money to go out and hire a research company. I call it basically voice of the customer research. Get on a phone with 3 or 4 customers Not just your good customers. Talk to a new customer. Talk to a customer you're trying to get in to see and really get them to talk about, yeah, I like what you're doing, or no, I don't. That's the kind of validation I think that really helps level set a company and get them off to the right track when they're positioning their brand, that they've really talked to customers.
Hope you're enjoying my conversation with Tim here today. And now is the time to talk about my book. Oh, yes, Construction Genius. One of the cool things about Construction Genius is that it dives in to sales and marketing. And sales and marketing can be a bit of a black box for construction folks who are used to just getting their hands in the dirt, building projects and kicking butt. But sales and marketing are absolutely essential to the success of your business. And if you'd like to get some killer insights in how to improve your sales and marketing, my book, Construction Genius, can help you with that. So go out to Amazon, purchase yourself a copy, purchase copies for everyone in your organization, read the book, and you'll immediately get insights into how to get better at sales and marketing and leadership and strategy. So go to Amazon, grab yourself a copy, $20 for the soft cover. You're going to have a great time reading it. And now back to my discussion with Tim. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's really important for those customer conversations to take place. And what I encourage my clients to do is to develop what I call the avatar. The avatar is the one person that is their target audience for every single piece of marketing that they have. And again, you may have that internal avatar, which is the person that you want to hire. And you may even divide that between, let's say, someone who's in the office and someone who's in the field. But you're very clear on who you're speaking to in every piece of your marketing material, because if you're not, then your message becomes diffused and it loses a lot of its impact. Do you think that's along the right lines there, Tim?
Yes, I do. And Eric, you're spot on. One of the other mistakes that I would say owners make is your brand is not for everybody. And you just mentioned it. You've got an audience and you need to be true to who you resonate with. And my belief is that you're all things to all people does not work. So I think you're spot on. Having that avatar to really, here's who I want as a customer, right? That's very, very important.
Yeah, that's interesting because one of the things that oftentimes construction companies get hamstrung by is that they do the right projects in the right locations, but for the wrong clients. And the reason why they're working with the wrong clients is because their branding hasn't been specific enough to attract the right clients and repel the wrong clients.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you this. What role does, in your branding, if you think about reasons why people choose not to do business with a construction company, what role in branding does bringing those things up and dealing with them up front, taking those objections, why people don't do business with you, and then addressing those objections so that they're sort of alleviated and people feel more comfortable working with you?
I'm sorry. Can I have that question?
Yeah. So let's say I'm looking to buy construction services. And one of the reasons why I don't want to buy construction services, or I'm fearful when it comes to it, is that I'm not the expert. And so I'm going to hire this construction company and they're going to hose me on change orders because of my ignorance. They're going to take advantage of my ignorance. And I'm going to have to pay a lot more money than what I agreed to in the contract simply because of the change orders. And let's say I'm the construction company and I know that people don't want to get change ordered to death. Is that something that I bring up in my marketing and in my branding so that people who have those concerns have that issue addressed up front?
Okay, I see where you're heading. I would say this. I think some of the strongest brands in a category are the brands kind of go against the preconceived perceptions of the category. Think about banking. Think about credit cards. High interest rates. They're always going to, there are companies, Capital One with credit cards. They basically built their brand around doing it differently. So I think when a construction company can address those preconceived notions in their brand and pretty much say, we're not like the run-of-the-mill company you're used to doing business with. Now, that is a very hard, challenging position, but if you can own that and you can put processes in place to make sure you're delivering on it, I think that can be very powerful.
What role do testimonials have in my branding?
Okay, great question. Some brands I call experiential brands, meaning what makes them distinctive and unique is the experience of working with them. And that's really true in service categories and in the construction category.
Can you give me an example of a brand that's like that? It doesn't have to be in construction, just so that we kind of get a hook on what you're talking about.
Yeah, I'll use a client of ours if that's okay.
Sure, please.
Yeah, there's a company here. They're headquartered in Chicago, but they have offices in St. Louis as well, called Clayco. They're a national design build firm. In 2010, they really were kind of coming on from being local to becoming a national player in the design build company, or in the design build space. And what they really, really were selling and what they were really good at was they felt like they were building the structures that were making a difference to the world. Meaning, they're in life sciences. They're doing stuff in environmentally clean battery plants. But they felt like we're doing projects that have an impact way beyond the structure. We came up with this brand for them, which they're still using 15 years later, called Beyond These Walls. The idea is we're building the structures that are positively impacting society in immense ways. That, to me, there is a positioning. It's a tough one to deliver, but they put in the work and investment to do that. They're targeting the right types of companies. They've put processes in place to make sure they are building those kind of buildings. They've got a portfolio to prove it. There's, to me, a great example of a company that's doing that.
So I think that's interesting because you mentioned the word they've put processes in place. So when we're talking about branding, we're not just talking about a fancy logo or your website or just some sort of fluff. We're actually talking about the substance of your business. Am I hearing that right?
Absolutely. And you know what? A lot of times it's a great point, Eric. A lot of times in that branding session we talked about earlier, somebody will say, we are delivering on that particular benefit to the customer, but we're not doing it as well as we could. So a lot of times a to-do list will come out of that branding session. If we're going to try to live this brand positioning, we've got to put these three things in place that could be very operational in nature. It could be, do we have the right project management system to really ensure we're keeping clients informed along the way, we're managing expectations, we're delivering work on time, change orders aren't a problem. So yeah, if you're delivering on it, the brand experience better reflect that brand position. It's a great point.
I have clients who've been around for over 100 years, and businesses change, obviously. They develop, they grow, and there's branding, and then there's rebranding. So how do I know it's time for a rebrand? Other than, maybe I get bored with my logo, I want to change it all up, and then people say, well, what are you doing? So what is rebranding? Why is it important? How do I know when to do it?
Good question. So I call it a brand refresh. So a brand is kind of like, I'm getting a full facelift. A brand refresh is, I'm getting a facial. I'm just going to improve on a few things. And usually what happens is there's something about the brand that isn't resonating. The brand is not relevant as it once was. You mentioned something that it can be simply our marketing materials and our logo are outdated. We don't look like we're the company we say we are. So graphics like that can cause it. But what I see more often is new leadership. Somebody comes in to run the company, and next generation, they have a different vision. Your brand has to reflect that leader's vision. And I'd say that for all of your owners, whatever that vision is, your brand should reflect where you're going. So that's a lot of times a change in leadership. A lot of times it's markets. So you've went into different markets. Maybe it's geography. You've always been in the Midwest. You go into the Southeast. Well, that brings a whole set of challenges because no one knows you out there. And so you've got to new markets a lot of times are a reason to do a refresh. Maybe you've acquired a company. Now there's two companies coming together. You got to again, come back to saying, what does this merged company stand for? And so those are all triggering events for when I think, and there's more than that. If you go to our website, the first thing that'll pop up on the homepage are 9 kind of reasons you might need a brand refresh. And these are the triggering events we see over and over again on why companies visit doing a refresh with the brand.
So just walk through those 9. Just give us the 9 right off the top there, please.
Okay. I may not remember them all, but I'm going to do my dangest here. So here are some of those triggering events, Eric, on when people might want to consider a brand refresh. Has your company been acquired or have you merged with another company? That's always a biggie. New leadership brings a new vision. Are you reflecting that? Have you entered a new market segment, a new industry, new geography? That's always a biggie. Geographic footprint. You go from local to regional. What does that look like? I talked about it since the pandemic. Lots of changes in how consumers shop and consume. So changes in consumer behavior, how they shop for construction services. Have you expanded? Do you have a different service line? So are you offering something? Are you offering design build and now you're getting into architectural design? So anytime you do something like that, expand a service offering. Again, has your graphics, logo, are they outdated? Are you no longer feeling like you're current? Maybe it's your brand messaging. You feel like it's tired and your customers are kind of glossing over it. It's not resonating. And finally, a competitive threat. You have a new competitor in the market that might be getting into your shorts a little bit. Always a biggie. So those are the 9.
That's excellent. So when I go about doing that refresh, how long should it take for me to go from, let's say, the executive team discussion to any of the changes that I make on my website and all that kind of stuff?
I tell people, expect that to take 3 months. If you really do it right, because if you think about it, Eric, again, if you're going to validate it with customers, you want to do a little research in there, then you want to get into the internal. I always say when you're introducing a brand or doing a brand refresh, what's the internal communications look like? I would always want to do that first before I would start externalizing it with marketing. Like really making sure your employees, your subcontractors kind of understand where this brand is going. So by the time you all get that done and you launch externally, my guess is you're 3 months out.
Excellent. So tell us, Tim, a little bit more about your company and how folks can get in touch with you.
Absolutely. Our company is Guile Leon Marketing Communications. We're in St. Louis, Missouri. We've been in business almost 35 years now. The best way to get in touch with us, go to our website, GEILEON.com, GuileLeon.com. Please visit me on my LinkedIn page, Tim Leon. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm very active there, but that's a great place to get a hold of me. And you can email me. I'm still doing email, so tim@GEILEON.com. I'm happy to talk to anybody, just like we had this conversation today, Eric, with any of your listeners regarding any branding questions they might have.
That's great. Tim, I really appreciate your time. Thank you for giving us the insights, and we'll make sure to link in the show notes to all of those places where people can find you so they can get in touch with you. Thanks a lot.
I really appreciate it, Eric. You have a great podcast, and I'm honored to be a part of it.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Hey, this is Eric. Before you bounce away, thank you for listening to my discussion with Tim. Feel free to check out the links in the show notes to connect with him via his website, email, and on LinkedIn. And also go out to wherever you get your podcasts right now and give this show a rating and a review. The reason why I'd like you to do that is because when you give the show a rating and a review, it helps the show to be seen when people are searching for construction podcasts. And I promise you, people are searching for them. And I'd love to get your feedback on the show. And as a result of that, have more people be able to enjoy these interviews. Really appreciate you listening. Hope to catch you on the next episode. And thanks again for listening to Construction Genius.